Good morning and welcome to the first episode of The Upper Deck with Chris and Lynn for Pinstripe Chronicles. Lynn, what is the view from the upper deck?
So the view from the upper deck, Chris, is going to be all about a number of things. First, it's going to be a bird's eye view of everything going on in the current week for the Yankees and really everyone they're facing either prior or coming week, as well as getting a real fresh perspective weekly from what we're hearing from other fans like us through our social media channels, and so that we could share what fans are saying, and then discuss that and hopefully eventually get input from everyone listening here as well.
Absolutely, I couldn't put it better. For me, the upper deck is the typical fan's view of the game. Sitting there as I have myself in the upper deck, not in the judges' chambers, however. I wish I had. We want to bring what a fan sees, feels, thinks about the panorama that is the game in front of us. The history, the names, the achievements, and just the daily pleasures of watching the Yankees and watching baseball, whatever's going on in baseball. And we're trying out the name, The Upper Deck. For those of you watching and listening today, if you have thoughts on that, let us know. We had some other choices. We took a poll. Lynn, do you remember what some of the other options were?
So some of the other options were Bronx Buzz, Bronx Beat, and there was a third one, Plain Pepper.
No pepper. That was my throw-in. But actually, I think I liked Bronx Buzz the best, but I'll get used to Upper Deck. But anyway, let us know what you think, if you have thoughts on that out there. I thought today I would start out with, since I know Lynn and I are both so active on Twitter, what are some of my pet peeves about Yankees Twitter? And this is just stuff that I see over and over again that just drives me straight up the wall. And I'll see if some of you have the same thoughts. My first one is that the fact that we need a center fielder. Everybody wants the Yankees to run out and get a center fielder. And I can't understand this. Where do they think Hicks is going? I mean, Hicks is not, he's like the elephant in the room. You got to do something with him. And we still haven't eliminated the possibility that Gardy will be back. Right, Lynn?
Right. That's absolutely right. And I'm already assuming that there's groans and moans as people listen to you saying that, Chris. But the truth is that's a possibility. I won't say probability yet, but were Hicks to play day to day, which is, I believe, the current plan, right? Out in center. We still need somebody like Gardy was intended to be last season and didn't get to be. So I think in some capacity, that's one of the possibilities, definitely. We also know that Hicksy has a bit of a IL history. And so if the Yankees were to be planful at any point, which is not a possibility, they would want somebody ready to step in and spell.
Yeah.
So, I think it's time for people to just adjust. Hicks is likely to be our center fielder, and Gardy may be backup. And let me just also say, Gardy would be double duty because he also would be a great pinch runner in those, very important situations. So, I think it's time to stop the wish list, the fantasy list on anyone else other than Hicks.
Yeah, I think that we have more important roles to fill than the center field. at this point, considering that Hicks is out there, until through 2025. So,
Right.
I mean, he's got the contract, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, and who knows? Even Gardy, I'm not saying I don't want Gardy back in that role, but it seems like whenever Gardy is on the team, his role never turns out to be that limited role where he's filling in off the bench. He somehow always works his way into the freaking lineup. But that's because he doesn't stay healthy.
Well, right. And, it's actually the other way around. Gardy's not working his way in. Situations happen and Gardy's plunked in. Gardy has said in more than one interview that this was not what he anticipated. This is essentially what he didn't sign up for last year, but there they were, and so look what he did, not so much consistently throughout the season, but at the end when we were in the run, he was really one of the top performers. Right. So it wouldn't be, such a terrible thing. And so far that's 2 votes, one from you and one from me, for that to happen.
Yeah, no, you're right, though. We would definitely be, we hear the rumbles on Twitter if you're pro-Gardy at the moment. People are pretty frustrated with the whole Yankee philosophy, of which Gardy represents one of those philosophical tenets. And that is that the Yankees seem to be playing with a lot of fill-in players these days.
Right.
We want, the fans want the superstars. And meanwhile, for example, this season, another thing that's, that fans on Twitter or Facebook or wherever are really wanting is Matt Chapman at third base. And but recently Buster Olney came out with an article saying that if they manage to get Matt Chapman, they might consider him at shortstop, moving him over. It's just this kind of philosophy of moving players out of position, playing, getting Andrelton Simmons, for example, if they don't manage to land Correa or Trevor Story. Just going the cheap route, if I can say one, that it's not really good, but.
No, but it's honest, right? Let's face it. It's very clear they're going with the stopgap plan.
Stopgap. I couldn't think of that word.
Right. And so, so a couple of things right there, Chris. So, I'm 100% with you. And this goes back to fans want the superstars, but fans also want continuity and consistency, because this stacking of pitchers because there isn't a strong enough rotation because of injuries, and this shifting around and seeing what sticks to the ground, no one could deny has, had an impact on what happens in the approach to the postseason.
Right.
The second thing is just about third base in particular. I'm not even sure why that is coming up at the moment, because I don't think that that's the priority need in the infield. And we haven't even made decisions about the critical need in the infield, which is shortstop, obviously, and even some debate going on right now about first base, which I'd like to get into.
Okay.
And so I know that there's mixed feelings, mixed reviews about Urshela. But again, last year was an inconsistently attended year by him. And if we look back to 2021 Urshela, there was a hell of a lot of he's our third baseman going on. And so do we think about last year as a wash, which, in my view, in many ways was, or are we really considering doing away with Urshela? Because he's not a utility player. Right. If we were to replace him, he's gone to somebody else. So, and in terms of shortstop, you're right. I mean, we're still floating around Correa and Story, and this notion of doing this stopgap kind of approach, because we're waiting for
Right.
Peraza and Volpe,
Yeah.
is so such bad judgment from my upper deck view because you know, first of all, okay, so Peraza is a bit closer. He had success in AAA more recently, but you know, if he were ready, we'd be hearing about that, you know, stoppage or not that's going on right now. And so, and anything could happen in those years before they get up.
Right.
And Volpe has a good few years to go before he'll even get through all the, you know, farm systems. So, but at the same time, we know Glaber has to go. And one of the buzz from fans that and I think, Chris, we might have been on the same exchange here. Is there some buzz going around about moving DJ to shortstop? And you know, then what happens to second base? And DJ, I'd love to know what you think, Chris. DJ, in my view, is our second baseman. It's where. Do you agree?
I agree 100%. Yeah.
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 You know, second base is really the fulcrum of the infield.
Yep.
And you know, he has that turn and play, turn and throw, you know, quick instinct to, you know, attack and release the ball. I just think that would be a silly move. Although right now it's currently just buzz.
Right. I mean, any plan, and I never thought, although he worked out, I never thought DJ LeMahieu was a super utility guy to begin with. I realized that wherever they put him, he's successful. He's a great athlete, and he is magic, I think. He just knows the game. So but that doesn't mean that wherever you put him is the place where he's the most effective for over the longest period of time for the team. I mean,
exactly.
Anytime I start seeing when the sentence begins with, you know, moving DJ to another position, I just keep scrolling. It's like, I don't want DJ at first base. Let's get a first baseman. Pay somebody to be at first base who's a first baseman. You know, we've got a second baseman. But then again, what are you going to do with Glaber? As you said, Glaber's got to go, but where? Do you see the Yankees trading Glaber, bringing Glaber off the bench? What do you think?
I see Glaber being traded as part of the package that has to be really attractive for other reasons. I think
the Band-Aid off. You know.
Yes, exactly. And in truth, I think there are teams that would snatch Glaber up. Yeah. You know, there are teams that are rebuilding even deeper than the Yankees are, because we are rebuilding, let's face it. You know, so he might have a chance in those other teams that know they got drastic changes to make. Yeah. You know, and you mentioned first base, Chris, and so the other thing that I'm seeing on Twitter from our fellow fans is the Olsen Rizzo thing going on, and the pros and cons of each. You know, and so first of all, we mentioned, you know, the dollars and cents of it all. Right. Olsen would be a really expensive grab if we were able to grab him. And so, you know, if the trend, you know, of history tells us, that doesn't seem to be where Cashman's interested, or Steinbrenner's house purse is interested in. You know, but I'm aware that Olsen brings the bat, you know, and is also very athletic. He would be a great get perhaps in a different time. We know that Rizzo is a pretty certain thing because he was very vocal at the end of the season that you know, he's happy he came, he'd love to continue. So I think dollars to cents, you know, I'd be surprised if they didn't just stick with Rizzo. And I'd give Rizzo a little bit of leash. He he performed okay. But
Yeah.
I think he was brought over because of his performance out, and he really didn't get a normal opportunity to settle in and perform.
Right. And I get that that Yankee fans want an all-star MVP at all positions, and that we're not going to get that. So we may. I mean, is Rizzo coming back settling? I don't know. Olsen looks pretty good to me, but as you said, that seems like the expensive route. And if they do make some kind of move, it would be, I would think, for Chapman at third base. But again, the way Gio Urshela has been more or less ushered out of Yankee fans' hearts, as you pointed out. I mean, Gio was the man, and for us, and he was clutch very often. But I think this season he had a lot of injuries, didn't he?
Yes.
He injured this season.
Yep.
And he did not have, just like DJ, he did not have his best season. But if the worst thing happened was that we had to live with Urshela so we could have Correa, then I would be perfectly happy with that solution, because I believe I think Urshela would bounce back. Or could.
I think we saw him starting to bounce back in the chase at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he had the Grand Slam, I believe.
Yeah.
Right? And so which shocked everybody, shut Twitter up for a minute. And we got a glimmer of why he was so favored.
Right.
Was it a fluke? We haven't had the opportunity to know, but there's something still in him. And you're right. That's sort of why I'm thinking about washing out last season. And so there's a catch-22 here with a few of these positions. Go with what you know, or take a risk.
Right.
Right.
And spend money.
And spend, right. So exactly. And we know the position on that currently. So, we could even say that bringing on Olsen or Story at short, or Correa at short, we're going by what we know and what their history is, but what will it look like when they get here? Right?
Right.
Just because they have that superstar history and all of the badges of honor attached to them, anything could happen. They could be the next IL champions. And so, God forbid, wouldn't wish that on anyone. But, and it really, truly is a catch-22. I mean, some of them are clear. Glaber needs to be out of shortstop. Yeah. That's clear.
We need a shortstop. What is your thought on, and dare I mention Sanchez? What is your thought on the catcher position this season? I mean, is Sanchez out? Should Sanchez be traded or demoted or whatever? What should be done with Sanchez?
So, strictly just answering your question, I don't think that he should be starter. Basing again on history, and anything could change.
Right.
He is way too inconsistent, both at the bat and behind the plate.
Yeah.
And really, I saw much more behind the plate problems this past season than we had seen prior.
Yeah.
Lot of pass balls, a lot of hesitation about where to throw the ball for, the out, and when it gets to him,
right.
And just both ways, both when he's hitting and catching, he had cement shoes and arms, as far as I was concerned. It was just sluggish, slow to react, and when he was reacting, it was sloppy.
Yeah.
So preference would be, for a while I was pro trade, but there's been absolutely no buzz either, from our fellow fans or really in the press,
Right.
that's even been part of any sort of conversation.
No, that's true. However, I did notice one thing. The Yankees did sign Phillies AAA catcher named Rodolfo Duran. Signed him to a minor league contract. And he's supposedly a plus defender. So I don't know if there's anything in that. He was in the big league camp with the Phils in 21, but spent the season in AAA. Anyway, he's kind of a thought. I mean, there's still Higgy, right? I mean, Higgy didn't go anywhere either. So
no, Cole wouldn't let that happen.
Yeah, damn. But the lockout is it makes every conversation that we're having kind of moot, but we're still having fun having it.
Right.
These things are going to get addressed. The minute the lockout's up, the Yankees got to get busy.
But will they?
Fans are, I remember the year we could have had Machado or Harper, and I swore we were going to get one or the other. And I mean, I guess
so pissed.
I was so pissed that year.
I wanted Harper back.
And I don't, that's the feeling that I have going into this free agent season. It's like Correa's sitting there, and we need a shortstop. It's not like we'd be pushing somebody off position.
Right. That's exactly right. But to your point, if history shows again, were this stop, this stop, the shutdown ever opens, do you see Brian and Hal all of a sudden picking up the phone and saying, okay, Correa, what's your price?
Right.
We want you right now, sign.
Yeah.
Or, same with Olsen. I'm expecting, talk about cement shoes. I'm keeping my, expectations really low on that. But, it brings up another issue that I'm really seeing a lot on Twitter about, which is about the concern of a late start in the season.
Yeah.
And or a much shorter spring training, depending on when or if this all ends. So, and that's real. What are your concerns about that? Or what do you?
My concerns are that it's radio silence. I mean, there's not a peep there out of anybody. There's not a leak. There's not a rumor. There's not even the whisper of a rumor coming out.
Right.
And we're not. I mean, it's like nothing at all is happening. Can that be? I don't know, but it's very exasperating as a fan. That's for sure.
Right. And were there something happening? One would think that, although, if they're being secretive in any way in their negotiations, you would think that some sort of tiny bone would have been thrown to the press with, like, not necessarily details, but, the press have to be hound dogging them.
They have to be.
Yeah. So the fact that it's radio silence from the press as well, is also really telling.
Yeah.
So what's the deal? Why aren't they meeting? They're not that good at, why would they keep it such a secret?
I know.
First of all, it wouldn't happen. There'd be a leak. There's too many political reasons and too many parties involved to not want to put something out there to stir the pot.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
but starting the season late, that's going to break my freaking heart.
Well, right.
It's a mistake right through my heart, I need baseball.
Right. And yet we also need baseball that looks different than the past couple of years.
Right.
and of course, the recent variant might have just changed that regardless, or might be changing it regardless, who knows? But we wanted a path, a clear path from the first day to October.
Yeah.
And so, but now if it's not April through October, that diminishes chances.
Right.
As well, let alone preparation.
Right.
We need that spring training.
Right. Which is not that, I mean, pitchers and catchers are not that, it's what, 30 some odd
35
days out.
35 days from
35
today.
days from today. Yeah. So, I mean, fans across baseball know when that happens. They are waiting with bated breath for this thing to end. So we have baseball in as soon as possible in late February.
Yeah. I mean, our friend Stacy. Oh, sorry.
No, I said, even if it's a spring training game, I'm watching it.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I get up and I've been watching the Australian baseball. Have you seen any of that?
I have not. Although, that was the big news yesterday, right?
It was the big news yesterday. And
yeah, girl power, man.
Power too, girl power. And if you didn't see it, there was the first woman pitched for the Australian Baseball League. Emily Nyman actually tweeted out her picture with the words, "Sign your daughters up for baseball." And I couldn't have agreed more. Because people, why aren't more women represented in the sport? Well, we don't grow up playing it. We don't grow up having the opportunities to play it, really. Anyway, it was interesting.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and the best opportunity women get in that regard is, softball. Right. And so even at the NCAA level, or the MAC conference level, they're not at the, I don't want to say at the same level, because I respect softball 100%.
Right.
But it doesn't give them the same launch into Major League Baseball.
No.
So you're right. I mean, that glass ceiling is super high.
It is.
How long did it take baseball to have female analysts and commentaries and reporters?
I know. Right.
So this, I don't know if this would be in our lifetime, but good on Australia.
Yeah. Good. Definitely noteworthy. And, I would like to get her picture on a t-shirt now with girl power for my granddaughter,
100%.
I did try, I signed her up for t-ball, and it was pretty cute, actually. I can't say she's in love with baseball right now, but the seed has been planted.
You just gotta get to a few games, get her down to the Renegades for starters or something.
Yep.
Every little thing, but yeah, we need those t-shirts. You listening, Chris Vitale?
Yeah.
Get on that, man.
You mentioned, broadcasting, sportscasting. This week we found out that there's been some momentous, for the Yankee universe, additions to the ESPN lineup, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is going to be very exciting for you. I don't know how the rest of baseball will love it, but we're going to love it.
Well, we're going to love it, although, the A-Rod divide there, right?
Of course, we're talking about Michael K. and A-Rod getting their own show on Sunday night, I guess opposite, doing what the Mannings do on their Mannings cast.
Right, during the MLB Game of the Week, yeah. Right.
So what do you think of that pairing of Michael K. and A-Rod?
So, objectively, I think that it's a good pairing. I think that Kay has a really solid historical knowledge, And, but he doesn't have the field experience, and the professional ball playing experience, but he knows the game inside and out. And he knows how to keep a conversation going, knows how to pick out the salient points as they're happening. We see that live every time there's a Yes broadcast, right? And objectively, in terms of A-Rod, I know he's gotten a lot of flack about his, broadcasting abilities and analyst, capabilities. Yeah. But I really, I have to wonder if that's just, prejudice from the whole steroid hoopla, and, and just there's just not been a good perception of him overall anyway. No. I happen to think that A-Rod is an excellent analyst. Okay. And I do. Yeah. And that's very objective for me. But I have to admit, I've learned things from him. I've heard some very interesting perspectives and takes and explanations of plays, right? That have really informed me. So I think it's a good pairing in that way. I feel that they like each other. I know, Kay and I have never spoken. But Kay certainly speaks about A-Rod, and always has, to the extent I've heard, listening to him. Yeah. I think he's, he respects him. We'll have to see how the dynamic is. Right.
The thing is, it's kind of like, for me, A-Rod has always been a very awkward person in front of the camera. I don't think he's that glib, smooth talking. And you're right, he knows baseball. There's no question that A-Rod is, has a brain like the size of a planet when it comes to baseball. But listening, like Sunday Night Baseball was just a chore to listen to. Between him and Mendoza.
I was about to say.
I know. So, you're right. Hopefully the Michael K. A-Rod dynamic is fire, and the show turns out to be really interesting, like the show is with the Mannings. People just love that show, and the brothers, their relationship and their conversations and their analysis are really draw people in, and it'll be interesting to see whether Kay and A-Rod can do the same.
Well, and the other contributing factor is that people go to the cast with the Manning brothers for the reasons you said, Chris, but also because nobody wants to deal with the ESPN commentators.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, exactly.
That's part of the traffic as well. But I'd like to see the element that of the brothers, but I'd like K-Rod to not mimic it 100%.
Right.
I hope that, the deal wasn't about, an exact replication in how it's formatted, etc. Yeah. But I have hope for it. I do. And you're right. A-Rod looks like, Mr. Suave, in the press and so forth. But you're right. And yet his knowledge of baseball goes beyond just, the rules of the game and so forth. He has really been good, I think, at breaking down plays.
Right. He is. He's definitely an excellent analyst.
And saying, this is why that happened. Yeah. And this is what would have made that not happen. Exactly. So
I really think the question is going to be how at ease he is with the format. If he's at ease there, it's going to be a fun show. If he's, the A-Rod from Sunday Night Baseball, it's going to be the Michael K. show.
Well, right. And that's the other danger too, right? Because, K does bulldoze a bit. But at the same time, Kay has been doing this so long under his own name that he is experienced with massaging the dynamic, you know. Yeah. So I would hope that he would use the skills of engaging his co-host and, you know, pointing to their, you know, strengths and the things they could speak easily to, you know, and get him into that mode. Yeah. Yeah. So to be continued. We'll see.
They honestly couldn't have picked a better professional to work with A-Rod. It's just that the Yankee bias is so deep, you wonder how this will be received, whether it'll be received by other fans, but whatever.
There's going to be a lot of emotion, but first we got to get a season.
Right. First we got to get a season. And the last sort of note that I had on that similar score was David Cohn going into the Sunday Night Baseball booth. I love it. That's so great.
I mean, there's really nothing to say about perfect. Can't wait.
Yep.
And I just hope we still get him, you know, on Yes.
Yeah.
His
analysis, his observations of the game, I mean, are what I listen for. I mean, when I'm listening to him and Kay, and he's really the one that carries the weight, because he's the one that's been out there towing the rubber. And he knows what's going on, you know? So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I can't wait for America to get the special pleasure of listening to David Cohn on Sunday Night Baseball.
And I hope they're already listening to his podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Where you know, get even more of the flavor of what we're describing here.
Exactly.
So, yeah. I mean, who doesn't love Coney?
Yeah, I know.
So good for him. You know, the more access that, you know, baseball lovers have to his knowledge, the better.
Yeah.
So make sure your granddaughter watches with you and listens to the podcast with you.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is setting a good example, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's about all I've got for today. Lynn, have you got anything else you'd like to throw out there?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground.
Both
from the bird's eye view we talked about at the beginning down to, you know, real details on the fan buzz.
Yep.
So good.
All right. Well, we look forward to having more time with you on Sundays. Look for us. Subscribe, like, comment. Look for the Upper Deck on Pinstripe Chronicles. And thank you for joining us.
Thanks. See you next week, everybody.
Yep.